I'm gonna briefly talk about ANA finances and where we are in terms of dues, and I was thinking that we all could brainstorm on how to kind of strengthen our finances, because we've been in a bit of a deficit in the past few years. So I think it'd be nice to have a bit of a brainstorming session amongst us. After that, we're gonna do a DC Days debrief on what we've learned. We're gonna start with some high level meetings and then move to committee meetings, and then your representatives, etc. We're gonna break for lunch at noon for an hour. We'll come back at 1, and we're gonna do an issue and facility update where there's one issue from your site to share. And at 2:30, we're gonna switch things up this year. We're gonna have something new. We're gonna have a strategy panel discussion with 6 of us from ANA gonna be on the panel. And it's to share ideas for ANA's future strategy, followed by a Q&A. The hope is to end at 4 o'clock. And after that, we can just break. You all agree to go to dinner, happy hour, etc. And then we'll be back here tomorrow at 9 a.m. And tomorrow is going to be a short day. We're ending at 2:30. So you'll have plenty of time to catch your flights home. And after a grueling week, I think it'll be good to have a little half day tomorrow. Yeah. So I'm gonna briefly talk about 8 of our board. Oh, yes.
But just a little complication. For those who came out of the community station, you might have seen that big money scheme that's put up by Ben Cohen of Ben and Jerry's. So they're doing a media event at 11. Tasha's going to be there. So let's see, Lon, myself, and Scott, you might want to go down there. So I'm just saying, it's why we're leaving.
Is anybody else?
Excuse me, Tomvi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. It's Kim. Just one quick thing. If you can have people to over enunciate what they're saying and make sure that they're loud so that we can hear online. And then also I put the agenda in the chat for those that are here remotely so that we can follow along as well.
Okay. Thanks, Kim.
Okay.
Also, for the people who are virtual, when you do talk, please say your names and your organization. People online know who you are.
Is anyone else going to the thing at 11? Raise your hand.
Okay.
Okay. Because lunch is at 12, and I'm ordering lunch to be here around then. So, yeah.
Is it, without speaking, is it possible to, I don't know, somehow have a lunch hour from 11 to 12? I hate to interrupt the meeting, but I hate to miss something that's right around the corner that seems so pertinent to what we do. I don't want to. Jimmy,
I think that sounds good. I think I'm looking at the agenda right now and I'm thinking of just like reordering some things around because I don't want people to miss the DC Days debrief. I think that's pretty important, and I also think it's important for people like anyone to be able to go down there if you want. So I think that's something that we can incorporate in some.
It's gonna be lunch at 11, so that means if you're on the road. Because generally we order like catering.
is lunch being served to us here or?
It's scheduled for 12, yeah, but if people are going at 11, then that would take up the whole lunch hour.
Okay, can we
Lunch back.
Which lunch back?
Make it 1 o'clock.
or have the lunch break from 11 to 12 and we'll eat lunch while we do the meeting.
Yeah.
12 to 1. There we go.
Okay, you guys will be back here at 12.
I would make lunch 12:30, so.
Yeah,
12:30.
12:30.
Suggestions?
Can we reiterate what the event is that you're all going to?
Yeah, it's financially supported by Ben and Jerry's. And they already have up this big, what they call money cube. It's like 2-story, right out by the fountains in outside of Union Station. And one of the things it says is $2 trillion for nukes.
Oh.
So it's a sustained PR campaign by Ben. And in speaking of fundraising for ANA, I'm going down there in part for that, to make sure that Plowshares knows ANA is in town.
And there's several speakers. It's like a rally and a demonstration against nuclear weapons.
So we're told that Ben Cohen will be there and the executive director of Plowshare.
And speaking.
We have lunch at 12:30. We don't need so much social time.
Yeah.
We can eat later. Yeah.
1:30 lunch and especially.
Yeah.
We get that during time.
Okay.
So we'll do that.
We'll fit it in.
All right.
Let's do it. I wanna get on that street.
We'll do that then.
Now, what do we do for the next 45 minutes then? I guess.
But so we're gonna just talk about the ANA board and our finances. And then I think we can fit in at least a day debrief before we go over there. So yeah, we'll see how far we get down on the agenda. And I think we can break a bit before 11. So then whoever is interested in going down can go down. We just incorporate that into our agenda and then come back, lunch. And then continue on. Yeah, does that sound good with everyone? Okay, perfect. Okay, first. Thanks, everyone. Okay, I'm gonna briefly talk about the ANA board. If anyone doesn't know, my name is Tanvi. I'm the board president. Kim Scott, who's online, is our vice president. And Ellen Thomas, who's also online, is our treasurer. So the 3 of us are brand new officers. The last 3 officers rotated off and all 3 of us came on, became officers at the same time. I just guess like, I kind of want to bring up like one, I feel like concern about that is like, we're all brand new officers and we all became officers at the same time. And the 3 of the like previous officers rotated off at the same time. So it's kind of just like brand new leadership where like we were all kind of like, okay, what do we do? Because we were all brand new. And I think that in the future, I feel like we could make it so that there's not a brand new slate of officers. Not everyone rotates off at the same time. So I think that's something that would help ANA out. Cause we're all trying our best, but sometimes I feel like it, like for the next time, it would be more helpful if there's an officer that can stay on. And then we have dues reminders.
So Tomby, with that, can we make a motion? I don't know if it's in our bylaws that, you know, we have staggered elections such that it takes care of what you just said. Is that something that we can take care of and agree to in this meeting today?
I think that's something we can take care of in our next board meeting.
Okay.
So then we have consensus with board members. I feel like it is like a board question. I haven't taken a look at the bylaws. I should. I'll take a look and see what's in it for her. And we can just update those bylaws and vote on it in our next board meeting.
Got it. Okay.
Finances. So our bookkeeper Jennifer sends us a balance sheet and profit and loss sheet every month. Take a look at.
Okay, can everyone online? Oh, no.
Yes, we can hear that.
Sauce, okay, we'll do that one, sorry guys, okay, it's trying to make it easier to hear. So our total current assets in our bank account are 40,000. And, it seems to be, it's decreasing every single year. We haven't been able to either like be consistent or have an increase, in a few years now. But I'm looking at our profit and loss, sheet, and, we did get more income than what we budgeted for DC Days registration. So it seems like we had more registrants than what we expected, which is good. I think we should keep up with that. We budgeted $9,000 to get from DC Days registration, and we received 9,925. So we did receive almost 1,000 over, and I think that's a good sign. Spring meeting is lower. I think that next year we can definitely send out the invite for spring meeting earlier, and I know that it's hard for people.
Hi, so I'm on the watching for this Supreme Court decision, and it hasn't come up yet, but they've got more to come. Do you want to be a contact, like for
I don't think people get it. Okay. I'm just a little confused. So, yeah, I think we maybe should talk about how we can get spring meeting registrants up. Yes.
maybe we could invite people in the DC area who might not want to lobby, they don't have to lobby a lot, but might want to come to get updated on what's going on at ANA spring meeting. Such as Medea, but why don't you invite me? So, let's try, I know some DC people in the peace communities. It might be interesting. We'd have to tell them far ahead. Bunch of the time.
Yeah,
You
yes.
could also try to use it as a fundraising mechanism by saying, even if you don't attend, you can register and be on our mailing list and get an update.
Did you have your hand up?
Well, I was just gonna say that, and part of what this meeting's intention is to debrief the meetings we just did. So there's gotta be part of it that's like, I mean, that would be really boring, right, for people who weren't part of DC Days to have to sit through us debriefing our meetings.
But you get updated,
And, what'd you say?
you get updated with most recent understandings we have on the issues.
Yeah, so maybe like on day 2, it could be a different thing where we're reporting out on our meetings to DC colleagues and stuff, but we need like at least a day to have our internal process where we're, computing what the follow-up is, what we learned, what we might want to share with others, what we are planning internally as the alliance, because otherwise, we only meet twice a year. But I'm just saying that it's kind of a both and some of it might not be for other public viewing yet.
Yeah, I think that's something that we can, even like as a board, think of for the next year. And make that a new item on our agenda. To brainstorm. Janelle, did you have a-
Yeah, just on spring meeting registration, just thinking about how with DC Days, we have like discounted rates for like low income, frontline, youth, etc. But we don't have a discounted rate for the spring meeting. And that feels inequitable. So that would mean getting less income potentially, but also it would mean having more voices at the table, which I think is important, and being more inclusive. So I might propose offering a discounted rate for the spring meeting, or somehow like tying that into our scholarships or something, but just wanted to put that out there.
That's a
But
good
I think
idea.
it would be great if they came and they worked there. It'd be good.
And then
Bobby,
another,
can I ask a process question?
Yeah.
Do we have somebody assigned to taking notes?
no. But
No takers.
Is it doing a good enough job, you think?
They might not be. So guys.
Probably get her.
Do we have a volunteer to take some notes?
I can take notes, I'm starting to take notes, but.
Let's go do that. That's it.
on my laptop. It's okay. It's okay. Thanks, guys. And then what our other big deficit is, our membership dues. And I think as a board, we need to send out reminders more frequently is something that we've talked about at the board meeting. Because there are times that just like people forget to pay. It's like, it's not on purpose, it's a complete accident. So I'm thinking once a month, sending out dues reminders.
What does that do? What do the dues do?
Throughout.
Due date, a due date.
Do we have a due date? It's. We have a schedule of dues for 2025,
Do we
so
use
just
calendar
like
budget?
making sure you pay your 2025 dues.
Okay, so it's calendar.
Yes, Kevin?
Just in response to your question, I don't know if it's still the same from when I was on board up until last December, but last summer, we kind of had a spurt of new member groups joining ANA. And it was with the explicit understanding at the time that some of these groups and some of our groups are unable to pay dues as members, and that's okay. So my question is it still sliding scale? Part of that sliding scale is zero on the left, so.
It is still a sliding scale. We do have an option if you want to request a waiver or set up a payment plan. But as of right now, the minimum dues is $50. So we don't have a zero option, but unless you again, request a waiver or set up a payment plan. It's on a sliding scale based on your organizational budget. So let's say if your budget is between 100,000 to 400,000, 800 to $1,000. There is also maybe an option of like kind of like closing down like the sliding scale a bit, make it maybe like 900 to 1,000. If we really do feel like we're kind of low on money. But for the most part, it seems like if you're like, let's say the scale is 800 to 1,000, most groups like pay that top level, like 1,000. So I think the big thing is just sending out more frequent reminders, because once again, I think people forget, or it gets lost in their inbox. If it all gets sent to Bananas, I know there's a lot of Bananas emails, and I know they get lost in my inbox sometimes. So I think if it could be good to send out personalized emails. That's something that I've been thinking of, as a solution to this. Yeah,
Well, if
understand.
someone's requesting a waiver, then I guess it doesn't matter, except that reminder is different. And can the waivers be every year? Can the same group apply for a waiver every year?
I guess so. We haven't gotten a waiver of a group. Yeah, like since I've been on the board. So I don't know how frequently groups are requesting waivers.
I like your idea of making it down. I think, people don't feel, I mean. They know they have to, just gives them a little more control and feeling engaged. So, take it down, thank you. Layaway plan,
Well, this is Kim. One of the things with the dues too is that I don't know if Sophie been made aware. It's hard to find where the membership link and or the due renewal dues link is for member organizations on our website. So it may be that we can push those up to the front page or the home page such that it's easily accessible. I know that would help for us as an organization. But it's just a comment. And then also in the chat, some of the people are saying that debriefing is really important. Especially for those that did not attend ANAC days. So I'm hoping that that's still a big part of the agenda as it was scheduled.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at the ANA website right now, and if you scroll all the way down, there's a button for member dues. But maybe we could bring it up to the top to make it easier for people. And then if you click on it, it shows our sliding schedule for 2025, and it also says like where to send dues reminders. So it's all on the website, but maybe we can just move it up all the way on the bottom.
And what about new member application process?
Yeah, so those are
dues.
Yeah, those are in like new members are all invited by the board, so the board has to have consensus first on a new member group to reach out to, and then they're sent an invitation letter. So that's not done through the website. But maybe on the website there could be a link that could be like that is like request to join ANA or something like that.
Like a letter of interest or something.
Yes, yeah. And then it
Same. Okay.
decide on that. Yes, Pam.
With somebody
Okay.
to take charge of, if people have ideas of new members, possibly ask, like people here who are on the meeting, that's Pam from Frog Valley Cares. Anybody here in the meeting who have an idea, we could have a central person keeping track of them. How would we do that? Who wants to take it?
Like, keep track of what?
Keep track of the people with ideas of new members to invite.
Would it be helpful to have like a really super quick brainstorming session, just to see like any ideas that are in this room?
That would do
Yeah,
it.
we can do that.
Could people speak up just a little louder?
Sorry, I was just asking if it would be helpful to have like a super quick brainstorming session for any ideas that are top of mind in this room for groups that aren't yet groups that would be good to invite, just so we can start building that list while we're here.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. So if anyone has any ideas on groups that we can invite to join ANA, this would be a great time. Yes, Giselle.
So I would really love to propose Roots to Resilience. We have Jamie Valdez here, and just an amazing resource in Pueblo, Colorado, fighting for environmental justice, for the frontline fight for small modular reactors, and taking the lead on the Nuclear Free Colorado Coalition, which is trying to expand the frontline fight around nuclear power and nuclear issues to the full state. I would love to propose that.
Thanks, Giselle. Don?
So I agree with stuff suggesting, but I guess I'm a little confused about the agenda. There's a 2:30 this afternoon discussion about strategy panel to share ideas of ANA's future. Is the membership issue part of that? I mean, I'm just trying to understand whether we're getting ahead of ourselves or whether the afternoon's agenda item was something different than some of what we've just been talking about in terms of how to get more members, et cetera. So I don't know what the board had in mind. I guess the real questions, what did the board have in mind about that 2:30 this afternoon discussion?
Yeah, so we have a list of questions prepared for the panelists. That Chris is planning on moderating, and so take us to those.
So it's not this discussion about, okay, good.
Okay. Ian,
I'm working in Wyoming with the Wyoming Outdoor Council, and they have a tribal conservation team specifically working with the Lakota, the Northern Arapaho, and the Eastern Shoshone tribe on these nuclear issues.
Do we know if Code Pink is a member group?
no, they're not. Yes.
I'm kind of forgetting, but last year someone came from Montana to DC days and was doing some work in Montana. Is
Yeah,
that,
and Priscilla, this.
Carol Bellin?
maybe, I'm just wondering if,
This,
oh, so is there a Montana group maybe that is working on ICBM stuff?
Can reach out to her. I don't remember that she was affiliated or coming on behalf of a specific group. She had worked with a lot of different groups at different times. But I don't,
Yeah.
does anyone know? I don't remember her being here like affiliated with a specific group.
Okay, well, we might reach out to her. Montana would be a great state to have engaged with ANA if there is an organization working there. I just don't know.
I have her contact information.
Maybe Kevin knows.
Well, it's along the same lines, Nuke Watch Wisconsin, has worked on, ICBMs and missile silos, wrote a book about it. Went to all the silo sites and made a map. So they're not a member yet.
Great, yeah. Nuke Watch Wisconsin, sounds good.
Nuclear resistor too.
Are there any suggestions on the Zoom? You can put them in the chat.
I was gonna say, yeah, I was gonna say news. I mean, they're for the ANA, they're not a member, right?
You kind of cut out, Kim. Can you say that again?
Nears,
Nears.
I know, weren't they, yeah, they were a friend of ANA, but not necessarily a member, right?
That's right.
Yeah, we just got news on Zoom, so I know that they, that the decision is not John members, just like some, so.
And
I recently was in touch with some people in the Sierra Club, and they're trying to bring the nuclear issue up higher into that organization. I don't know if they're having very much success yet, but.
I have maybe a stupid question, but like I'm involved with more, I guess, anti-war, anti-imperialist movements. Like, how does that, is that more of like a coalition partner situation? Because all the wars that you're talking about are like very specific to this issue, but like obviously the ties are there. I don't know if that's like more of an informal relationship sort of thing, but.
yeah, I feel like traditionally, like we've had groups located by like DOE complexes.
Gotcha.
But groups can either join as members or friends of ANA.
Oh, okay.
A friend is like, they don't necessarily agree with like all our stances or align with our stances. But I do think that's something that we can explore as well, because yeah, once again, all these movements are so intertwined. So I think that's something that the board has explored.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just remembered, so nuclear ban us, they definitely joined. They did, okay, great, just wanted to confirm. Can someone send me that information?
Yes, I'll send it to you, so. Okay, it's 10:40. What time are people planning on starting their walkover?
Like 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. Does anyone have any kind of like last minute thoughts on A&A finances, how else we can stay stable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, quickly, I believe there's a proposal going forth to Prospect Hill for A&A. And a proposal was put in, Gazelle got a nice proposal, I'd like to, and I forwarded that to Plowshares, and then I heard 0. But hopefully I might see Plowshares people in just a few minutes. Yeah, so anyway, those are 2 things I know about through fundraising. All I know.
I mean, I think this needs to be a longer conversation, and there are some questions like in the.
I just didn't want to start the DC days debrief and like, it only lasts for 5 minutes, right?
Yeah, for sure. Cause I have a lot of thoughts and a lot of updates on finances and just our efforts around that. So is this an appropriate time to bring that up? Should I wait on that?
Maybe wait until we're like doing the panel and we like come to fundraising. Yeah.
Wait, okay, so if we're not specifically talking about fundraising now, then maybe I'll wait too, I don't know.
Okay.
Super quick, no, I noticed the registration costs increase for DC days with not for spring meeting, so I agree, maybe we should have a reduced rate for spring meeting, but if we're gonna increase the cost for registration for DC days, it makes sense that the spring meeting cost will increase.
Chris, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. This is also a longer discussion, but we've just been exploring building more partnerships with academics and hoping to involve students and research. And A&A could possibly be a partner in a larger fellowship program that works together with academic institutions. So that would be a much longer discussion, but it could also be a big project that would involve fundraising.
And my,
Drive fundraising.
and I have a similar suggestion on those veins. A lot of Indian tribes have community groups within them, and I don't know that it's appropriate or if a guideline would allow quasi-governmental organization, but we'll look into that.
Okay, everyone wanna walk over?
Yeah. Who wants to?
Wants to, yeah.
So
And should we take
when are we coming back? To tell the online people?
so lunch is at 12:30, like 12:30 to 1.
I think we're gonna eat lunch and do something, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
people should be back at 12:30 online.
Oh.
Can you make sure they know?
Did y'all hear that? We're gonna take a break. We have plowshares in the neighborhood. And so we're going to
Can I make an announcement? It's
uh
Diane. I think that the Supreme Court did not rule on the CIS decision today.
okay. All right, I'll pass that
For those
on.
that are interested. Okay,
We'll see everyone at 12:30
okay.
Eastern time.
So just thank you to everyone, just a round of applause for everyone for being here. And I'm excited this afternoon to bring this panel discussion where we go over some different strategy ideas. Ideas around inclusivity, fundraising, capacity building. Just thinking outside the box to help us keep making this event as the best that it can be each year, and also to strengthen our ideas for future years and how to help A&A throughout the year continue to build. So please welcome all of our panelists here. One more round of applause. So we're just going to start with a few introductions here to introduce everyone, and could we please just do a minute or two just describing your experience with grassroots organizing and where in the nation that you work, and then we'll jump right into some more questions and engagement with the room.
Good day, you all. My name is Jesse Deerenwater. I'm Citizens Resistance at Permy 2 in Michigan. We're based North Redford, which is like a community in the northwest side of Detroit. So what was it again? Sorry.
Just
a little bit about
just a little bit about
the work.
the
Yeah.
work.
All right, yeah. We're a small organization that was started back in like 1993. After like a Christmas Day accident at a reactor where like 1 million gallons of tritium laced water poured into like the basement or like the underground part of it. And after a turbine exploded or something, and we kind of just been going ever since. I personally am like second generation doing this. How that group that I'm involved in got started was my mom had moved to Michigan after being targeted for activism with the Sequoia Fuels plant in Oklahoma. And they like wanted to pick her brain, and then next thing you know, like she ran the organization for a long time and kind of taken the torch now. So like I mean, my experience with grassroots organizing has been more in the environmental justice side of things and trying to wedge nuclear issues in the climate discussion, and that looks like forming coalitions and working in coalition with like mostly like people of color organizations and other frontline communities. Basically, same lot.
Cool. All right. My name is Scott Yunt. I'm the executive director at Tri-Valley Cares, but I've only been doing that since 2023. Before that, from 2009 until 2023, I was staff attorney at Tri-Valley Cares. So in that role, I worked a little bit organizing workers made ill by on-the-job exposure at Livermore Lab and at Sandia National Lab, California. And we worked on enhancing or improving the Energy Employee Occupational Illness Compensation Program. But also Tri-Valley Cares more broadly has always had, or not always had, but often has had a organizer working on organizing the community of Livermore, specifically folks who live right near the lab. People live very close in proximity to the lab in Livermore, so there's some neighborhoods there. There's also Site 300 high explosive testing range in Tracy that Livermore Lab operates, and we've worked to organize folks, both the workers and people, which are mostly ranchers, who live out by Site 300, although now they're building draft houses right along. So we're now moving to organize those folks who are mostly transplants, moving right near Site 300. Yeah, I think enough for now.
I'm Tommy Cartelet. I'm also working for Tri-Valley Cares, and just kind of like my background and what brought me to grassroots organizing and especially the nuclear field. I studied international security in undergrad, and I wanted to do international law, and that brought me to law school. However, when I was in law school, I switched into environmental law. And then after working at some like private law firms, doing civil litigation or kind of some like property law, skirting around environmental regulations, I just really wanted to leave the private law firm sector. I just felt like I wasn't making a big enough impact in my community. And I want to do more community-based work and community-based activism. And I found the Oak Ridge Environmental Peace Alliance through that, which focused on nuclear weapons, and I feel like that like fit my background and my undergraduate studies pretty well. So that brought me into the nuclear disarmament field. And then I recently decided to move back home to California, and that brought me back to Tri-Valley Cares. So it's cool that I'm still able to do nuclear disarmament work.
Hey everyone, my name is Giselle Frisfeld. I work with the Rocky Mountain Peace and Justice Center. Grew up in Boulder County in Colorado. And activism has always been a part of my life. I grew up in a very activist-oriented family, so from a very, very young age was going to rallies and protests, especially around immigrant rights and later the anti-fracking fight. But became really radicalized in 2016 with the Bernie Sanders campaign. That was very eye-opening for me in a lot of ways, and just the way that all went down made me very motivated to go to college and study political science, international relations, and public policy. After all of that, I graduated in the pandemic, moved back to Colorado, and started working for a climate change organization, trying to stop oil and gas development in Colorado. And then shortly after, started working with the Rocky Mountain Peace and Justice Center, doing anti-nuclear work, particularly around Rocky Flats. And just as I've gotten to experience more and more movements, just recognizing the importance of being in solidarity with a variety of different movements, because all justice is interlinked. All of these fights are deeply interwoven and interdependent, and so is our liberation. And it's important to have bridges of solidarity between movements. I believe in like a mycelium structure of organizing, where the movement is an ecosystem with many different parts, and how can we work together to ensure our collective liberation across every different area. More recently, I've been dedicated to trying to end the genocide in Gaza and calling for Palestinian liberation.
My name is Carlos Olivares. This is my third year as the DC Days coordinator. I kind of ran into this role by chance after I finished my undergrad at UVA in Foreign Affairs. So most of what I know and work on grassroots organizing wise is in the springtime with ANA. I've learned a lot the past 3 years about nuclear weapons and waste, having been interested in the weapons side before joining ANA. Yeah, happy to share sort of a outside, more neutral perspective on the organization and its goals and the road ahead.
Thank you, everyone. Another quick round of applause. This came on?
Kim might be online. I see a Georgia Lawn.
Tim, are you on the call? Maybe not. Kim?
Kim Scott.
Yep, I'm here. So, we're introducing ourselves?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So Kim Scott, Executive Director for Georgia One. I am a proud native of the city of Atlanta in the great state of Georgia. Chemical engineer trade. Actually, I got into this side of the nonprofit business. So this is my first career. And so I really got into this because my email when I was working for the city of Atlanta, so they deal with all of the, water, wastewater utilities, air quality from the wastewater treatment plants and all that good stuff. Anyway, so my email got just hello.
You're kind
Can you
of
all hear me?
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up though.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay. I was going to say, well, what about now?
Better.
Is that better or not? I can come back and do an intro.
No, we heard you.
We hear you.
Yeah.
I can hear you. It's just,
Okay. It's just choppy.
yeah.
It's better now.
Okay. So anyway, I was just saying that I got into this work because my email was part of Discovery. So I'm happy to know that a lot of, you all have law degrees, because, that was one of the things. It was a law student as well that was volunteering, heard about, because the project was going to displace some residents in, frontline communities that had already been environmentally burdened, bad air quality, bad water quality. And, because of my email, I got fired. And so I was walked off the job, but later building and doing my job with a moral compass. Because I said was that these residents should not be displaced. So basically the government utilized eminent domain, to push their infrastructure project. So same thing that's happening in Byrd County with some of our residents, now they're sending them things in the mail, and they've already started doing a take-in for some to expand Plant Vogel. So they're probably looking at some SMRs or some type of, other technology, but that's what they're doing currently right now. And so here I am. It will be 4 years for me in July as the ED of Georgia One, and happy to be here fighting for environmental protection and nuclear harm reduction for our frontline communities in Georgia.
Thank you.
Jim. Thank you to our distinguished panelists. And we also want to make sure that everyone in the room feels included in this discussion. So we're going to have a few questions to spur the conversation, and we're going to be opening it up to the full room to ask questions to the panelists and keep the conversation going within the full room. So please do feel free to raise a hand when we give the cue. And this is supposed to be a room-wide discussion. Everyone's included here. So first of all, just to give a little bit of an idea of the format for this, we have a few prepared questions that we've been reviewing together over the past day or two. And so we're going to be raising the questions, and then whoever feels comfortable, just please respond. And then we really encourage discussion between the panelists. So responding to each other and building off of each other's answers. So, and then after some time for the panelists to have a discussion, we'll continue to open that discussion to other questions from the room. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. So we have three categories of questions, and the first question is about inclusivity within the Alliance for Nuclear Accountability. And there's been a big focus over the past several years on bridging a generation of activists and bringing in more diversity and bringing in new voices to the table and making sure that marginalized and impacted communities are represented and empowered to speak here in Congress. So we've been working through a scholarship program to help make this possible over the past several years. And that's, I think that we set a record this year. ANA sent out 25 scholarships to people to join DC Days. So our first question is just about how can we continue this and be most effective? What can ANA do to make DC Days and ANA feel more inclusive? And along with that, just kind of an addition to that question and making ANA more inclusive is, how can we stand with environmental justice? How can we most effectively empower and support Indigenous people, relatives, BIPOC, and marginalized communities towards our common goals?
I guess around just something that I kind of like noticed and something that we work on a lot. And and this is more or less about like supporting our LGBT TQ QT and Two-Spirit relatives is by maybe like on our name tags or something like that, like having a place where we can put our freaking pronouns and stuff like that, and encouraging folks to like use those pronouns for the people. I just say that because I have, I'm like the only like straight male in like my group or whatever it is, and like some of the like most powerful activists that we have in our thing, and and I just always try to with that. And I'm going to think of supporting the marginalized communities too. Make it.
So, Tom B and Scott.
I feel like, yeah, there are like so many new activists and we are being very inclusive, bringing people in. But I also feel like we need to be more inclusive, bringing new people into like leadership positions as well. And kind of like fostering space for new leadership. And sometimes I feel like that is an uphill battle because of how, kind of technical the nuclear field is. And I feel like a lot of the information isn't very accessible or very easy to digest. And I feel like one training day the whole year on nuclear, it just isn't enough. So I just feel like maybe we need to, there's so many like free online training materials for this. I know like my previous job, as executive director of Ariba, we hired a community organizer, and she didn't have any background on nuclear. So I did some research and I found some like online, materials for nuclear disarmament training, just like historical training as well. That just encompassed the whole field. So I think we need to do like more of that and like just send out like free materials as well to foster this new leadership and like a new generation to be able to step forward.
I really like that idea, and it flows right along with something that I was gonna bring up also regarding trainings is, I feel like the Sunday training is very information dense and, you know, necessarily so, but there's a bit of a inequality, I guess, between people who have been working on these issues for 30 years, know all the acronyms by heart, and like, you know, could recite all this stuff in their sleep, and people who are coming into nuclear work, nuclear issues, and or lobbying for the first time in their lives. And I think we need to do more to bridge that divide so that people don't feel like they need to act like they know more than they do, or need to pretend like they've also been studying this for 30 years, because that's like the expectation that by the end of this 8-hour training, you'll be able to talk like you've been doing this for 30 years. Like that is physically impossible. And I think we need to account for that. And I think that, you know, having really technical knowledge is extremely important. It is like such a valuable piece of ANA. And I think we need to do more to honor and uplift the inherent wisdom and value of people's lived experiences. I think, you know, the technical knowledge is important and becomes extra impactful when it's paired with a story of someone's personal experience of being impacted by the thing that the technical knowledge is discussing. It just leaves more of an emotional resonance and an emotional impact that, you know, at the end of the day, no matter how closed off the staff members look, like they are still human and we are trying to hit them in a human level. And so I would propose having a story of self-training as a part of the next DC Days training, so that people who are coming in with a lived experience feel really empowered and given some skills and tools and resources to really lean into that personal experience, so there's not like a sense of like, oh, I need to know this specific way of talking about this specific thing. But yeah, finding ways to just have our lobbying and our storytelling be more inclusive to a wide range of experience.
Can I just add something onto that? Not just for the noobs or the laymen or the frontline people with lived experience, but also for the old pros with all the technical information. Like you all need to they need to feel you too. They need to be like, well, why does this person care? You know what I mean? Just because they're paid to or something or whatever. But you know what I mean? That it feels like everyone needs to develop our stories of self, us, and now, or whatever you want to call it, you know. And so
And I also wanted to add in that, even though Joyce is pro-nuclear energy, one thing that she did say that I thought was very touching as well as important is finding a common cause. And I have yet to really buy into the common cause of ANA, right? We know nuclear energy, nuclear power, nuclear power or nuclear energy, nuclear waste, nuclear weapons. But what's the common cause of that? What's bridging us together? And I don't think that that's being kind of pointed out. I also think that we are bringing new people in. We're not talking about the intersectionality of nuclear and the environmental, but public health inequities and climate change that is really happening in real time. And I don't think sometimes it's appreciated when we bring it up. Like, we're really fighting this on a grassroots level, and to have local government come and say, hey, this $19 billion data center is going to bring jobs, and we know it's not, or this $19 billion data center is, I'm sorry, this $19 billion data center is going to be good for, Georgia's economy, and we know it's not. Those are things that I feel like we need to come together to have a common cause of an agenda and talking points that bridges the gap between all of those sectors, because these are things that we're facing on a day-to-day basis.
So another question, just building off of Kim's response here about intersectionality to build into this discussion, is how can we build more intersectionality and solidarity within the movement across multiple issues, and finding more common goals and recognizing how to do outreach and support each other to bring people to this movement and to build more grassroots power between multiple movements. I mean, this can include Free Palestine, economic justice, social justice, labor rights, healthy food access, anti-war, etc. So just continuing the discussion in terms of intersectionality and inclusivity. And I saw that both Carlos and Scott had a hand raised. If this is if you'd like to respond to that, or.
Well, I wanted to add something to Tommy and Giselle's point about inclusivity and giving people space to share their stories.
A little louder, please.
I think it's important that, people old and young and new to the organization, or who have been here for a long time, have the space to share their stories, and whether that's during the Sunday training or before, like Tommy said, sending out materials, but also with the caveat that they know that there's space for them to ask questions, for them to look for more resources, whether that's from people here or people in different groups, whether that's including extra questions in the registration form, saying do you have preferences about procedures or obviously food, or just things that you want to go over, things you don't know about, but making sure that they know that it's a safe space to ask those questions and to include those requests so we can best accommodate everybody.
I had raised my hand earlier on the inclusivity issue, in talking about that with my team last night in response to the questions. Pam brought up something that I thought was really impactful at FCNL, the Friends Committee on National Legislation, the Quaker group, where we had our pizza party last night. That's their office. They do a lot of lobbying on nuclear issues, and they have a guide for how they conduct their meetings with members of Congress. And after introductions, in every meeting they do, there's a story. There's 5 to 10 minutes of a story. And they have somebody in the meeting who's got that assignment, who's going to share their personal connection, reflection, their personal story. And they've acknowledged that that is the first and foremost, most important part of their meeting. And it made me just really realize how that's lacking often in our meetings. And it's true when we have meetings in the hall, it feels rushed and kind of intends to share these intimate stories maybe, but I just was struck by that, and I really like that model. It's something we might want to think about more. Dash, did you want to add?
Just a quick thing for that, since you mentioned the story thing, I think that'd be pretty cool to also have like handouts on that type of thing.
And very photographs, handouts on the stories, like a quick little thing, maybe a photograph of a family or whatever is going on, like so people can actually look at it, because
Great, yeah, handouts on various stories, and also I think our topic is rich with story. And all of these organizations have, everybody here who I talk to shares impactful stories that I think really make a difference, and we just don't really share them in the context of the meetings. Yeah, Ian.
Yeah, just to add just a little bit of clarification. I got done with gripe sessions decades ago, so as long as these are stories that aren't somebody, and meetings get taken up by people griping, and that's an obstruction, so you know, there should be ways to elevate the issues in those stories.
Agreed. And but you asked a new question about intersectionality.
Yes.
And I guess I really hit a wall with this question when I was thinking about it. And maybe I'm feeling negative, so but we make a really big effort at Tri-Valley Cares to have intersectionality, and when we do events, we invite lots of other topics, and like we have a Hiroshima Day action every year, and lots of other issues are brought to the table that we invite. Yet I often feel like our attempts to engage with other movements are difficult on the other side. That I think in the environmental movement, for example, there's a lot of disconnect around nuclear power, and including folks who are quote unquote anti-nuclear and environmental discussions and events, etc. On the nuclear weapons issue, I mean, similarly, a lot of folks like don't feel like that I talk to don't feel like it's part of the issue around Gaza and Israel, don't feel like it's part of other tensions in the world. So I feel like we often get siloed by the other movements, and I don't quite know how to deal with that. And I think, of course, one way is to try to, by inviting those issues into our events and stuff, and we've been trying that, but I guess I'm just like bringing up that wall, because it feels like to me where the hard part is. Yeah.
Other responses from the panel, then we'll go up to the audience.
Yeah, so similar concept, I mean, similar issues and similar thing here, like we like to, you know, be really intersectional. It's taken me years to get our org and the issue around nuclear power and other things not like legitimized, but trusted by the environmental justice community. You know, I had to go around for years, you know, I mean, these are also other issues that on my personal time that I've like support, you know what I mean, and I'm part of. But then people get to know you, you know what I mean, trust you, and freaking they're like, oh yeah, that's some real shit. Come down, we need you. We need this voice because it's lacking. We need this knowledge because we don't know nothing. You know, or we know that it's wrong, we know it's bad. That part's simple, but like how, where, when, and why, you know what I mean, it's something. And so it's a slow process, but it's possible just by showing up and not demanding space for your thing, showing up in solidarity for folks, and eventually it like happens. And then on the thing of solidarity and standing with environmental justice, and how can you effectively empower folks? That's like a two-way thing. Like you know, you're showing up for other folks, not necessarily showing up, because there's a lot of like anti-nuclear folks that try to show up to these EJ spaces, and because they can't get their issue out front and center, they stop showing up. And so that's kind of like a thing, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, okay, I guess they didn't really care about us, they just cared about that or something. And so that's real, to be cognizant of that. pay attention to that. But also potentially, Anna, like a specific suggestion is maybe the Alliance for Nuclear Accountability can write a statement or have something on their website of like, you know, like we don't support false solutions, which is like carbon capture. It includes small modular reactors. It includes, you know what I mean, like gas plants and biomass and all these different things. I mean, I don't know where Anna is necessarily, but by naming these things, you put it out there so other folks can see where you're at, and then they can kind of come and ask questions. You know what I mean? And so that's one thing, is naming some stuff.
I agree. I also think that nuclear is environment. So I believe that that's the problem right there, is that we within the organization have siloed nuclear weapons, nuclear power energy, and nuclear waste, you know, in these three different buckets. It's all environmental work, and it's all environmental justice when we talk about what it does to communities. SRS wiped out, it's a 400-acre, almost a 400-acre site. It wiped out towns. It wiped out demographic, you know, a demographic of people, you know, that look like everybody in that room, right? You know, so that's an environmental justice issue. And they continue to have brown water, poor air quality, soil issues in and around it. I don't care how much they try to say, well, it's way away from civilization. It's not, because you're still pulling from the same drinking water source that these communities downwind rely on. That's their drinking water source, the Savannah River. So it's an environmental issue. So until we buy into that, there's no way for us to convince others that, you know, they should be joining, and or, you know, we should have some type of solidarity, because we don't have solidarity in how we think about this issue. And that's just my opinion on it.
Indeed, I saw two hints from the audience, Mitch and then Ian.
Yeah, so obviously first time here, there's some great comments. I come from like an anti-war, anti-imperialist background for the most part, and I'm seeing some like really obvious connections to that movement. Specifically, we talked about the attempt to basically onshore or near shore our uranium processing pipeline from bottom to top. So in my mind, you know, that kind of helps make sense of Trump's sudden turn on like, I kind of like nuclear now, which normally you would be like, okay, I thought you loved oil and gas. But if you look at it in the broader context of wanting to wage wars against Iran, Russia, China, these countries that we do not need to think of as enemies, they're not our enemies. It makes a lot more sense. And I think we need to start tapping into that anti-war energy, because a lot of anti-war groups are not on the level about the steps that are being prepared for that conflict. They're ready for when it actually starts, but they might not be seeing these things fall into place, which I think my time here has kind of illuminated that, right? Like the US does not want to have to rely on other countries when it decides to take this nuclear with a country like China. And that is really scary for a lot of the world, and obviously could lead to like our destruction. And just to tie back to the climate issue, I've also kind of figured out through this weekend that it's these same moneyed interests, these same capitalist weapons manufacturers who are greenwashing the living hell out of this energy topic. And they are going to benefit from the buildup and what happens next, which is the war. So like, when it comes to like exposing that through education, these climate activists are being duped, and like they need to be shown that it's these ginormous weapons manufacturers who are spending all this money convincing them that this is an alternative to, I don't know, dying in the climate crisis. So like, I think there's like a ton of connections that can be drawn there. And coming from all these backgrounds, like I would love to work on that, because I don't want a war with China to happen. And I don't think anybody does. But if we wait for that to start, we're already behind. And this whole opposition to the entire supply chain being nearshore is an opportunity to thwart that effort, because they're not going to be able to do it unless they figure out a way to make sure their supply chains don't rely specifically on China, but basically any other country, because then they're insulated enough to just do whatever they like.
So Ian and then Jamie, and then I wanna change gears soon.
Yeah, context is important, so I appreciate what, and when we silo ourselves, we're pushing people out, and I appreciate Jesse's, suggestion of, and rhetoric of all solution, and another, thing is environmental racism is racism. So we all have an obligation to fight that, and what I've been, suggesting to Giselle on the Palestinian issues, the Palestinians got recognition at the UN by studying the Western Shoshone at the Nevada test site. And we should have been doing that, but we're busy fighting the genocide. And when we talk about genocide in Palestine or here, we need to define that it's the UN Convention on Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. And genocide is the destruction of a people or the destruction of a people in whole or in part, or the infliction of conditions intended to bring about the destruction of a people in whole or part, to kind of just unify it. And at Timmy's event, there was people talking and just throwing genocide out there, prominent people, the owner and Medea, and I brought it back to Timmy's discussion by drawing that common line, and it's essentially racism, but it is a genocide. So I want to say that our rhetoric, the context of how we represent what the organization does should have those all solutions and all human rights matter.
Thank you. Something you were saying, I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to catch your name yet, but something you were saying about kind of cutting that all off at the source just resonated with me, and it reminded me that it kind of goes back to the conversation about uranium, right? That's where it all starts, with the uranium, and like in my community, just upstream from us about 30-40 miles, we've got a Superfund site that was labeled as a Superfund site over 40 years ago, and they still have no plan yet to clean up that uranium. You can see former uranium mill, the Cotter uranium mill in Colorado. In 40 years, they still don't have a plan. The state of Colorado has no plan to clean up that site. They had a company that was brought in to clean up the site. The company pulled out, citing that it was too problematic and costly, and so now the state of Colorado has no idea what to do with this site. And yet, here we are talking about more nuclear, not only power being generated in Colorado, but waste being stored in Colorado. We haven't even cleaned up the mess that was started with the Cotter uranium mill or Fort St. Vrain or Rocky Flats or any of that stuff. And so I think, like you're saying, we need to really kind of maybe put some more focus on the uranium and kind of cut this all off at the source as much as possible.
Thank you. Sorry, we got the circle with some other questions. So we're just gonna we're gonna continue on in the discussion here in the conversation. So all this in mind, what do you think we need to do in order to maintain ANA's long-term sustainability?
Well, I think the messaging is very important right now. As Scott mentioned, the storytelling. I think we need to have some clear talking points that we can share and it be coordinated among all of the member organizations. We need to be strong on our messaging, just like the nuke bros. There are some nuke bros out here that are really pushing nuclear in every way. I don't think that we should just push uranium. We gotta push plutonium and tritium for us in Georgia as well. And I just think that it should be just straight to the point. Nuclear does not solve climate change. Nuclear is not our nation's solution to protect our national security. Nuclear is not, you know what I'm saying? So that way it's very clear, but and then we give them some equitable solutions in the education about what nuclear is not only doing to our communities, but there are some other equitable solutions to solve, problems and provide you electricity, or to have, safeguard our communities against nuclear waste and storage, on and so forth. That's, I think it's in the storytelling and in the messaging that, we can pick up some wins here.
Yeah, I want to expand on that a little bit. Like ANA has been around for 40 years and they're really good at explaining the nuclear waste and the nuclear weapons issues. But like has been said, the storytelling issue is really where we hit a wall in terms of explaining the issue to other people or in meetings. I think we need to find something compelling. Like Scott said, the stories that empower people to care about the issues. The story that resonates the most with me and that has really stuck with me is Melissa Bumstead's when I came the first year. And it's like, okay, here are these issues, but if you go into a meeting and, it's really sad and unfortunate, but it boils down to nuclear is giving these children cancer. And right away, that turns me on to this issue. And like, this could be my neighborhood, this could be my community. This affects me if I'm that staffer. So finding that common cause, but also through that story, through empathy and showing these folks, like whoever you talk to about the issue, not just diving into specifics or technicalities. You say, here's something that you should care about because it can happen to you.
Other responses from the panel? There's also, on the question of sustainability, we have fundraising. What are your ideas and recommendations?
I have a lot of thoughts on this. So I want to give a huge shout out to the folks who have been on the scholarships and development committee this year. Want to pull out a lot of KC sounds in the group, which yeah. So this is, I think, the first year that we've done this, and we've been meeting most of the year now. We started meeting like early this year. And the committee is twofold. So the first part of the year, half of our meetings were focused on scholarships. So fundraising for scholarships for DC Day specifically, fundraising for scholarships, sending out information, application forms for scholarships, approving the scholarship applicants, and then dispersing the scholarships and all of that. And then the second half was more looking into fundraising. So how we can apply for grants, how we can research and identify grant opportunities. On the board, we constantly talk about and hear about, like, and Tom, you brought this up a bit about that we're dipping into our account more and more every year, and it's not sustainable. We're losing less than we're bringing in, but we are at a point where the stakes on the issues that we're working on are higher and higher. Every year. We need to be sustainable. We can't afford to pull back our efforts, but with the way we're currently going, we can't afford to keep doing what we're doing without new streams of income. So we've already started our grant process. I think we've applied for 2 grants so far this year, and we've got 3 more on the way. But we're a small committee and we're all very over capacity as people. So I would really encourage anyone who's willing to join this committee and actively support the grant process. That would be really, really helpful, as well as just finding streams of fundraising. I mean, we're representing over 30 groups around the country. I'm sure different groups have access to different resources, different funders, different opportunities, different information. So I think we need to think really seriously and have a very candid discussion about our financial stability and what it's gonna take and what people are willing to do to make this organization continuously sustainable.
Is that support in terms of grant writing, the actual writing, or?
I mean, it could be literally anything, like, I think we just need more, yes, grant writing's a big part of it. And we have a lot of grant applications that we've been drafting, so it gets easier over time. Once you like write the language, you can just kind of copy paste it. But also like identifying grant opportunities, staying on top of deadlines for applications and reporting. Building personal connections for, you know, people who might have access to resources, getting a personal foot in the door is really effective in terms of getting like large amounts of funding. So yeah, anyone who like can lean on personal connections or personal relationships, anyone who's willing to like hop on Google and just do some research and get some information. We have a grant spreadsheet that has like 60 things on it. So really anything people feel willing to do, it's all valuable.
That's a really good point, Giselle, and like a great idea. And I feel like a lot of people have the enthusiasm and they really want to help, but like they feel like they don't necessarily have the knowledge or tools to do so. And like Kimmy just brought this up to me that like maybe like there could be like a grant writing workshop or something at like the next like ANA like spring meeting that could really like help people out. And I feel like the more people then like know how to do grants, like the faster the process can go. You can apply to more grants because like we could all be doing it together.
And/or collaboration.
Exactly. Like yes, that like training like that will take time in the beginning, but it'll make it faster in the long run, more effective. So maybe like the next like spring meeting we can do like some kind of workshop.
Along with this idea of sustainability and fundraising, what goes along with that is capacity. As something else I've mentioned, the capacity to do the grant writing or the outreach. And so how do we increase our capacity? Do we need additional jobs? Do we need additional volunteers? Any ideas as far as capacity building?
For me, that's, I mean, you know, sometimes whenever you, sometimes when some groups bring in like people of color, indigenous folks, or other marginalized communities, they're already doing like, you know, 3 times the work in their own communities or whatever it is. And, but they want to come in, if they're coming in, they're coming in for a reason, right? To like help and stuff like that. So like the more inclusive you can be, the more folks you can bring in. Doesn't mean that you're like need to be using people up or whatever it is, but I'm saying that you bring in people with more skills, you know what I mean? And the more skills you have, the more people you have, the easier it is to fill capacity, fundraise, to do all that different stuff. So for me, it's about also being more inclusive and being in more solidarity with other types of folks making those connections.
That's why we're fun.
Yes. I wanted to share that, I mean, it's not rocket science or something, but Tri-Valley Cares has worked hard to build our capacity through an internship program. And that internship program has also included trying to find schools that will pay interns to be in public interest positions for the summer, or give them school credit to be in internships at public interest organizations during the school year. They generally need to have a supervisor, so that's hard in the context of ANA, unless somebody as an ANA membership group was willing to supervise that intern for ANA. So it might be like a joint proposal. I also wanted to mention there is a Plowshares Nuclear Fellow program for folks who are interested in a career in the nuclear disarmament field. They just did their round for 2025, and in fact last night at the event there were 2 of those people who received those who came. One of them's at Arms Control Association, and one at, or both of them at Arms Control Association actually. But we could attempt to get a fellow out of that program maybe for ANA, or
for one of the organizations who part of their work is to coordinate DC days or something next year. But it's just like another way that's not a grant to build capacity. And also help to bring people into the field long term by giving them experience that then can maybe turn into a job.
Questions from the audience, Pam and Dash?
As long as we're creating, create a paid position, so this person can, supervise the interns. We're dreaming, right? But there it is, we used to have it, maybe we could get it again.
A decent amount of schools from what I've been looking at.
Speak up, please.
A decent amount of schools that I've been looking at, especially
Universities, you can get like credits at your university for going to internships. And like, for instance, I'm just transferring to UC Davis, and they have a whole group of people that work with helping students find internships at Washington, DC. And they try to get students into that field. And there's different parameters for different majors, but they're really trying to push students out to actually get that type of opportunity. So I would honestly recommend trying to reach out to schools, especially if they have like not just a career center, but a career center that specializes in this field, like the Washington, DC area of UC Davis.
Yeah, it's actually a UC-wide program called UCDC, and
Okay.
ANA did have a free UCDC intern do DC Days coordination one year. Lulina Miles, who's now the president of the Tri-Valley Cares Board and was our staff attorney for 5 years.
Wow. I think we also have to recognize that students are going to school as well, and they're limited to the number of hours they can work. And, you know, we don't want to overburden them, but as well, we want to be able to recognize them and put the support that they need that would be helpful. And what I'm hearing is it's our brand that people want to be part of. It's the Alliance for Nuclear Accountability. I tried to put my sticker on our sign over there, and Alfred was, oh, you can't do that. I have to protect this, you know. And I was thinking the same thing down there. I don't want to go to somebody's art, and I was thinking slapping the you know, nuclear weapons are illegal bumper sticker all the way around there. I just hand them out to people. But, you know, we have to protect our brand, and we're building our brand. And the young people want to do this work because they like our brand. And that's what I was mentioning about, you know, giving that hope to the young people first. You know, I tell a joke, or I let them know that, you know, we make that hope every day by doing the right thing. And this is the right thing you need to do to protect your family, to protect your future and build that legacy. I was telling Kevin that I thought you're doing a really good job about in this last couple of years of bringing the youth in. It's just not me getting old and all of you being still young. It's about, you know, it's actually happening. So I think it's important we protect that brand and we market, you know, the solutions, all solutions as the hope we create every day by doing the right thing.
I want to talk about actually getting the executive director of Prospect Hill Foundation took Scott and I out to dinner about a month ago. And she said that when asked that ANA could make a proposal, at the time we said 10 grand, but I think it ought to be bumped up to 15. Has that proposal been submitted?
No.
She told us that her fiscal year begins July the 1st. That proposal needs to go in like yesterday. Okay.
Be on the radar of the scholarship committee?
I thought we had until July 1st to submit the grant application. That was my understanding.
First of all, they don't have a formal schedule. But again, their fiscal year starts July the 1st.
Oh.
That proposal needs to go in right away.
Oh.
Okay, in my mind, we had until July 1st, so thank you for flagging that.
It's drafted, Jay. We just need to send it in.
It's drafted.
Yeah, I drafted it. It's ready to go, or ready to be looked at by whoever needs to look at it.
Needs to go in as soon as possible.
See, yeah, those are.
Are we still talking about raising money creatively? Is that-
Yes.
Okay, so I guess something that can happen throughout the year before the next DC days is that, like, everyone in our own communities could, okay, actually, first of all, I want to preface this where the organizations who have money and get funding and get grants, and have people who know how to do that, need to be giving that money to the Alliance for Accountability. Obviously, I'm sure they are through the dues process, but think that the whole, like, the sliding scale system is beneficial for those who don't have money, but I also think that, like, if each community that has no money, like Kansas City, zero money, I've never been a part of a group that does activism that has ever had money or funding or people who staff or anything like that. The only way I've known how to fund anything is through benefit shows and art events and things like that. I think if each of us in our own communities held at least one benefit show or fundraising event that not only raises awareness for ANA and your own local cause, but it can raise money for your group and also money that can go to ANA and sustain us throughout the year. And also, I don't know, maybe we can help each other throw our events. I think we should just be as collaborative as possible in our fundraising efforts and not try to come at it as individuals, individual groups. I just know that Peaceworks, for one, is like very isolated in our local like community as like the only people who know anything about anti-nuclear anything. So I think that if we could collaborate on our messaging with each other, like again, talking about messaging that Kim was mentioning, yeah, I don't know. I think that that is something that we can do to raise money throughout the year, and it might seem small, but if we got it, it could build towards something greater. So. Yeah.
All right, well, we have 20 minutes left, so just wondering if it might be helpful for us to
I got a second fundraising thing.
okay, let's do two last real quick comments on fundraising, then we're gonna go to campaign planning. So Jay and then Carlos.
Yeah. Now, Scott, you're staying for this thing on Plowshares next Wednesday, or is it just Mary Leah that's coming in?
Just Mary Lee is coming in.
Okay, I don't have a good understanding, but Mary Leah called me, before I came out here. So I don't know exactly what the event is with Plowshares. And Mary Leah is former executive director of Tri-Valley Cares. Yeah, now senior advisor. So anyway, the bottom line of our conversation, Plowshares is into this thing that they're looking to build the field. I have said for 4 or 5 years, don't bother reinventing the wheel. ANA is here. That won't. I'm suggesting that could be a sizable portion of them rebuilding the field. I have not got anywhere so far. Mary Leah said she was going to reiterate this next week. Now, it's nice that we have this Ben Cohen event just now, and there were 4 or 5 MA folks down there. And I managed to stick, the DC Days report in the hands of the Plowshares executive director. But, if we keep mentioning things to them, I'm hoping that eventually they'll come back and fund us like they did 15 years ago. And Mary Leah can be persuasive. She agreed, we're in concurrence that she is going to try to advance this sometime next week.
Can I suggest, Jay, that you take a minute and talk, because most of the panelists and I think a lot of the people in the room actually don't have a lot of context for the history of ANA, and maybe talk about how it was once funded and what we kind of used to have capacity wise compared to now.
Yeah, well, I did say that Plowshares funded ANA. I think that terminated about 15 years ago, something like that. And they consistently funded ANA, I'm gonna say for at least a decade. And it enabled us to have a staff person here. And then, you know, it was never explained to me why they quit funding ANA. So I don't have a good answer for that. It should also be mentioned that Plowshares itself is not doing as well as it used to. Plowshares is almost like a broker. So it has to have all these donations come in. And then it turns around and distributes it to various folks. As far as I know, Newquatch, New Mexico, Tri-Valley Cares, and maybe Tularosa Basin Downwinders are the only groups out in the field that it's given money to. The rest is kind of DC-based groups and, well, national groups anyway. But obviously the object is to try to get them to refund ANA. And we know that Marilia is a persuasive advocate and Plowshares holds her in high regard. So, you know, we need to keep chipping away at them.
I'll try to keep this short, but another potential funding source that Giselle, you may or may not be aware of. When I started 2 years ago, I was getting sort of the background about what DC Days was and what it entailed. Was formerly we would do the pizza party at the Mott House on the other side of this building, and Don told me that if they were no longer doing grants or hosting events, Lon and I walked by the house and they were doing an event the other day. I think they're doing grants again, Thomas, for the Stuart Mott Foundation. And they allow grantees to use the space.
Carlos, I don't think there's a Stuart Mott Foundation terminated.
Their website says otherwise.
Yeah, and I think they might have sold that house. I'm not sure about that. So it might be something else that's holding events in.
Yeah, they took the sign off and stuff.
Did they? Their website is still off. As of 2025. Says they're still doing grants.
Well, should we go to campaign planning or did you want to go still talking fundraising?
I just wanted to super quickly end on a positive note with the fundraising.
Oh, sure.
So I do want to announce that the development committee, we just recently did secure our first grant of the year through the HC Gemmer Foundation. They said they got 90 applications in total and had a very small funding pool. And the guy talked to me on the phone and said that, like, of all the applications, ours really stood out and was the one that unanimously everyone voted to fund without any debate because of the strength of our work and the power of the national coalition that we're building. And so they were, future relationship there probably for sure. But yeah, we got funded $2,000 for our evening events. So.
That's the collaboration aspect, you know, some of our organizations like mine, for years haven't had our 501c3, so we're forced to work with Nevada Nuclear Task Force. It's a good relation, long relationship, 40-year relationship, or with other organizations to submit grants, and so we're sharing the strength of our issues. And I did get a $50,000 grant a couple of years ago from the Tides. And it's the work because the nuclear issue is pressing. It's pressing. But you know, I want to repeat that. So let's find some collaboration and do that.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a 501c3. That's the point.
Yeah.
Then with tribes as well, you know, try to explain some of this, and even younger people, we have oral traditions. So we have to have a good messaging in an oral tradition. And one of the things I thought about was having every organization, we give you the script or how to set up your own 2-minute elevator speech. And we have all of these 2-minute videos from each organization on a website. And you know, some of the younger people use their media skills. They want to help by using what they know, their skills, and not necessarily just typing at the computer, but editing, ordering, you know, seeing and watching.
Everybody tell their best joke.
Well, thank you everyone for all of this important information, good ideas for fundraising, and this is meant to just be really an introductory brainstorming and discussion, so we'll have a lot more follow-up to do, but with the time we have left, we only have about 15 minutes left, 12 minutes. We thought we'd circle back with what we've talked about so far with inclusivity, sustainability, capacity, and now when we have all this as our foundation, how do we do campaign planning? How do we strike while the iron is hot? How do we strengthen nationwide coordinated campaign planning? How is this already active? Because we already do this. We're not reinventing the wheel. We already have national coordinated campaign planning. I know one in particular around plutonium pits. So, but many, we have lots of different national campaign planning. Plan Fogel, that we saw Georgia once, report passed around to members of Congress all around the nation. But how do we get in touch with key decision makers in Congress? How can we strengthen our communication with key decision makers and empower our campaigns? So with the last few minutes, I thought we might reflect on this. Again, it's going to be a longer discussion, but just with this all fresh in our minds, what are some top level reflections? First to the panel.
Well, I just want to follow up and like agree with what Kim is saying, and that I feel like we should be more cohesive as an organization. I like we are, cohesive with DC days, and again the PEIS lawsuit. There's a joint press release, but I feel like there definitely can be more opportunities for joint press releases, for example, or joint social media postings, or maybe the Hiroshima and Nagasaki 80th anniversary as well. I feel like that's a great opportunity for joint press releases, like a joint theme for our commemoration events. I feel like besides DC days and fall meeting, we ANA doesn't really do anything jointly. I feel like we act as individual organizations a lot of the time, and we do need to be more cohesive with messaging.
Yeah.
If I can just emphasize on that, in the meeting with the DNFSB, they actually said that the ANA letter was a huge point of support for them, and it was actually passed around and utilized. So that was just really encouraging. So yeah, absolutely, more joint letters or press releases, because that one was really proven effective.
Let's start with the panel. Is any other reflections from the panel?
I guess in terms of outreach, I know that ANA has an Instagram, but to build sort of the bridge toward the younger generations, having a social media presence is super important, being on different platforms. I'm not the most social media savvy person, but people who are more capable than me, I'm sure, can do that. Reaching out in local communities, leaving QR codes with links to Instagrams or Facebook pages, things like that, just to get the word around on college campuses or wherever, to get more younger people involved. It's super important.
Giselle?
Just thinking about our messaging and our email list, knowing that I've heard this from other people, that it's very overwhelming when there's just constant things being sent every day. It's a little bit intimidating, and it's easy for things to get buried, action alerts, sign-on letters, campaigns can very easily get buried under lots of articles and lots of very technical information. So I almost wonder about having a couple different email lists, one that people can sign up for to get the main updates, the major sign-on letters, the major coordinated campaigns, just a more focused email list that people can sign on to, where they're not having to sign up to get flooded in their inbox, multiple times a day with a lot of things that they don't necessarily need to take action on. So I wonder about like maybe having a couple different email lists that people can join.
Just want to check if there's any response from Kim too. Were you about to go, Jesse?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, oh, I was going to say, yeah, I thank you for uplifting the report, and I was going to say thank you personally from us for those that passed out the Truth About Vogel report. A lot of hard work and time went into that. But yeah, I do think we've already talked about the coordinated messaging. That's just so important to me. Whoever got plowshares, there was a question about plowshares and why they stopped funding us. Was that ever answered?
No.
Okay. There was a question in the chat. And it was directed to Jay.
Okay, yep, inconclusive thus far, but we'll keep working on it. Jesse?
I was on campaign planning. I mean, I don't have like the thing of like what your campaign should be or whatever it is, but I can say that there needs to be a thing. I mean, campaign planning is messy. Or I mean, it can be whenever you bring everybody in. But if you want everyone to be involved and you want to move forward with everyone's involvement, you know what I mean, and dedication to it, then you need everybody throwing their ideas in and stuff. And that's a little bit more of like a messier process or thick or like nuanced at times, but it's like really important for like power building and narrative shaping for campaigns and stuff like that. So I would say potentially maybe hold, like it could even, I mean, I'm not saying like in person with all you all, but like at least like a couple like longer Zooms or something like that, and you could have, you know what I mean, where people are putting their input in and you can take it down and we can, you know what I mean, like, well, what can we do, what can't we do, you know what I mean, and what are we willing to do and what are we not, you know, but you got to take some chances with what you're willing to do those times too. So I would just suggest that.
Thank you. What about key decision makers? How comfortable does everyone feel with identifying the key decision makers for the issues that we're organizing on?
What do you mean by key decision makers?
Well, I've learned that just from personal experience with lobbying and working on these issues that there are, I mean, I thought it was really helpful this year that the packet included the different committee members for strategic forces and armed services and energy and water and appropriations. But it really took me several years to realize that they are the decision makers. So I guess I'm wondering how does the panel feel about how is that? I mean, it's a lot of decision makers, and I guess that's kind of just the nature of the work. But is there a way that we can draw more attention to those decision makers, put more pressure on them throughout the year, and make that more known throughout the Alliance?
What you're talking about really kind of what might be called power map. In other words, to say that, you know, the way a nuclear weapon comes into being as it goes through this committee and then, you know, this process, each one of those steps is where we have the potential, you know, oh, my congressman's on that committee, whatever.
Yeah, I think a power map would be a useful exercise. Any other comments?
That power mapping, but then during the Sunday training or something like that, whenever we come here, sharing some sort of analysis from that, making that into like the training, because a lot of us, you know, we don't know, you know, it's like you can say like, oh, that person's on appropriations, this, that, and the other, but it's still, it's like, well, how much influence do they have? You know what I mean, or whatever it is. And so maybe like it's going in, it's like, oh, well, we have like so many meetings potentially lined up with, you know, such and such committee, or so many with such and such thing, or whatever it is. So it might be more important for us in these certain meetings with this person, these people who are on the appropriations or whatever it is to cover more of this issue right here. And just to kind of give us a little guiding thing too, so like before the meetings, we're not spending so much time deciding, well, which issues are we gonna do? And then depending on the team leader to know everything about what, you know what I mean? Because that puts a lot of pressure on them, not pressure, but it puts a lot of responsibility on them to like think of shit on the fly or figure it out on the fly and stuff. So.
Oh, yeah, good call, definitely included in the folder resources.
Yeah, in the folder resources, yeah, in the Sunday, the general overview in the Sunday training, things.
My idea, Jessica, is that there would actually be a page on the website that would maybe even graphically show this. You know,
With a 2-minute video.
and the other suggestion I'd like to make by me is that in terms of social media, it would be, I don't know who maintains our website, but thank you. Thank you for doing it. But we have a page that lists current issues. So like if there's a deadline for comments on plutonium, where the page that says, you know, July, whatever it is, plutonium pits, click here for the information. You know, just so that there's one central place that would tell us, these are the things we need to be working on, this is a timeline. And this would also draw people to the website, because when, you know, you say, okay, when's that due? Instead of my looking through my emails to say, I know I got something about that a couple of weeks ago. I could go to the website and say, oh yeah, it's due next week.
Yes, thank you. All right, so I've got a hand raised from Mitch, and then we've just got a couple minutes, so any closing thoughts, if any panelists want to think of any closing thoughts to just to wrap us up here, we'll go to that right after Mitch.
Okay, well, feel free to ignore me again, first time. But as I'm going to these meetings, the only thing I can keep thinking is I need leverage against these people. I would say either, I was just gonna say it is the bipartisan thing, they don't care. And one of the things I'm thinking about is they call it lobbying when we go out there and we make our ass, but like, we live under a capitalist system. It's basically institutionalized corruption. And we are walking into a room with people who are already being actually lobbied by people with money. So I think we need to start thinking about like, are we really going to be asking or do we need to be demanding, and what kind of power can we put behind that? So I think about this as a grassroots organizer, and is that if I could come to them with some sort of leverage, like a petition, it sounds simple, right? But like hundreds of people from our communities, voters, people who have some level of sway in how things go, or can get angry, can protest at glance, those things. Bringing that into the meeting is way better than just saying, here's some logic that you need to look at. They don't, like, that's not really how they respond, because they're bought. I mean, I think that's realistically the case across the spectrum. So like, that's something I can't, like, when we talk about power mapping, I think we also need to go beyond that. It's not, the decision makers are the companies, not the figureheads are the politicians, right? Like there's more power in these. I mean, the corporations are people in this country, so like those people have all the power for the most part. And there's some nuance here that's probably needed, but like, let's be, I guess, a little. That's a longer discussion, but I think to me, that's what I'm thinking is I need leverage. I need these people to feel it in a real way, because I don't think they really have like a soul or a conscience, so to speak.
Can I respond to that?
Yes.
It doesn't solve it, but one thing that you can do, and that I think we could do a better job of, is in meetings relating a rough or exact membership or involvement number in the district. So for example, our mailing list enables us to go in and search by district. And so like I did that before I came for a couple of meetings that I knew I was gonna have. And when we went in, I could say, you know, we have 650 members in this district. And you know, it's not money, but it's some people power, and it does seem to like, they write it down. Like they never fail to write that down when you mention that you have lots of constituents. And in a lot of meetings, I didn't do it because I didn't look it up. And I went to other, you know, it'd be maybe something we collect for them from the alliance, like
Slap it on their desk.
What'd you say?
Yeah, just pop it on their desk, you know.
Yeah, and like, I might not have members in this district in Southern California or Nevada or something, but if I look at their, you know, this Alliance for Nuclear Accountability organization has this many members or something. In that business.
I just want to back up what Mitch said about demanding or just creating a sense of urgency. It's urgent. It's not just something about, oh yeah, nuclear weapons. No, this is affecting people now, and it's going to affect you and your children and your grandchildren. Yeah.
One last thing I'll add onto that, or something to bring into the meeting, is who else on the Hill, what other offices are working on the issue. I've seen a lot of the times in meetings, it's like, oh, who's working on this right now? Usually it's like, oh, what's Markey doing? But if you can like bring those coalitions of senators or representatives, say, here's who's working on this right now, here's what office you should refer to. That's just something else you can bring into a meeting.
Any other closing thoughts from the panel?
Just closing in general.
Yep, anything to wrap it all up, all the topics we've raised?
Well, I just want to close by just expressing an enormous amount of gratitude to everyone here. You know, I say this all the time to people, but anti-nuclear activists are a particular flavor of activists that I really, really appreciate. I just really appreciate everyone's so kind and compassionate, and like, you know, we kind of develop like a dark sense of humor after a while working on nuclear issues. Everyone's really real, and there's just like, you know, there's a rawness and just a very deep authenticity that I appreciate. And yeah, just really gain so much from all the collective wisdom and knowledge and experience that's in this room. Like every single one of you has such a profound story that brought you here. And the fact that we can be in a room together with the overlaps and intersections of our shared experiences and our common goal towards liberation. Just thank you, everyone. And yeah, don't burn out. Heavy times are ahead. We're here for each other. It's a long fight. Take care of yourselves.
Just the same, I want to say, I have a deep sense of gratitude for being invited here, not just what's kind of, but like the whole thing, and then beginning to learn from you all over these, you know, years, you know, or these last few years. I've learned a lot about the weapons complex. I've learned a lot more about Yucca Mountain. I've learned about the bomb testing. You know what I mean? That like my knowledge has grown. You know what I mean? And so it's really helpful. And I also appreciate the awareness for like a need or a sense to like stay current. You know what I mean? Stay like relevant and stuff like that. And you know, so that means like I was saying to someone earlier, it was like, you know, a lot of natives were working on Freedom of Religious Act that we didn't get till 1978, while some of you were working on some of these different nuclear issues and doing the things. And so some folks might have been impacted by things, but weren't able to like work on the issue. And so some folks were just now kind of coming into it and making space for folks who may be the laymen. That's important. So I appreciate that. And one thing I can say is more in the meetings, you know, centering the story, then knocking it home with the technical stuff, or centering the technical stuff and knocking it home with the story. That's important. So that means also letting like the laymen speak, because the, you know, I guess like I'm just saying that for lack of better words, you know what I mean? There or whatever, or the first time or the noobs speak more in the meetings and stuff is really going to help them and you all, us as well.
Yeah.
And I'll probably be bringing some people.
Yeah.
2 seconds about our brand. Sometimes, you know, when we were protesting at the test site, the opposition would try to brand us as anti-nuclear, so we can't engage. They try to polarize so we can't engage with them. So I switched to, I'm not anti-nuclear. My goal is nuclear free. And again, to our brand, we need to use that when we go to places where we know they're pro-nuclear, and say, well, our goal is nuclear free.
Or nuclear harm reduction. Like
Yeah,
Kim says that.
Awesome.
Any other closing thoughts, Scott, Kim, Tanvi?
Sure, I just think we reached a good consensus on Ian's idea to have some video of our stories. And I think we should, really.
That way we
have
can
that.
all go to those.
They can be on our website, video, I agree with you, is the medium of the moment, and it's something I think would be really compelling, and we should also capture, because we have people who, are getting, and make sure those stories are captured on our website.
You look at it else.
I was not looking. I was like,
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for your perspectives on finances and sustainability and capacity building and messaging, because I think those are so vital to movement and really vital to ANA. So I want to appreciate that. And just thank you for letting me be here, and everyone is so kind every year. It's my 3rd year here, so I'm relatively new. So I want to say thank you, and I appreciate you holding space for me for leadership.
Any closing thoughts, Kim?
Yeah, I also want to say thank you. This is my 3rd year as well. It's a lot of institutionalized knowledge in the room, even some, on Zoom. And I'm grateful to be here and in this space and to learn from others as well. I get real passionate about this work because I care about my community. And, I just also wanted to say is that sometimes it may come across as being a little aggressive, but, one thing, I kind of pride myself on, as well as, how I intertwine this thought pattern with the organization, is that over 50%, 100% of the staff, over 50% of the board actually live, work, and play in the frontline communities that we serve. So when we're talking about this, we're talking about it from a real lived experience. And so I'm just grateful to be in a community where, we can learn from each other, we can uplift each other, and we can come up with equitable solutions to a world that consistently doesn't care, a world that consistently, sometimes does more harm than good. But there are some good people out there, and they're in this room, they're on the Zoom, and thank you for all the work that you do.
Hey, thanks for putting us together.